Good morning and welcome to episode 4 of Rise and Signs. On this episode, our guest will be...
all the way from the Gator state of Orlando, Florida, we got Matt DiSalvatore.
Roll the intro. Good morning, friends. This is Rise and Signs. I'm Joe. This guy,
Matthew.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Which episode is this, Matt?
This, Joe, is officially episode number 4. Congratulations to you, my friend. We've made it this far.
Listen, I think this is the episode where we pass out awards, right?
Oh, is it? Have you come up with an award for Rise and Signs already?
Well, if this is episode 4, it's a full month, right? This is our 1 month anniversary.
That is true, actually. I'm just going to throw it out there. If we make it to episode 20, I think you should have to sign that bass guitar in the back and give it out.
Listen, I've got a lot of other guitars. That one is pretty dear to my heart. So I worked at Burger King, right? For years and spent not a cent from the age of 15 until like 16 something to buy that bass. And I played it at every show I ever played, every gig I ever did, every sort of job I ever had playing music. It's beat to heck. So it's not like in great condition. It's rode hard and put up wet, but it's lots of memories.
So in other words, that bass guitar is pretty much a part of the family at this point. So it's not going anywhere.
It'll never be sold. But hey, since it's our 1 month anniversary, you should go to your front door. There's a present for you there.
Should I actually right now live?
No.
Oh, imagine you had something dropped off to my door. Wow.
It would have been good. Great idea. I just thought of it just now. So Mr. Lavery, we've got a guest hiding in the sidelines here. Why don't you give our guest the wonderful introduction you do for all of our guests?
Joe, I appreciate that. And let's get this started. So yes, we are currently on episode number 4. So we've gone through the Rolodex and we picked out another winner. We have the vice president and sales rep manager at Creative Signs in Orlando, Florida. He is also Florida's director for the Southern States Sign Association. This gentleman coming up was an ISA Elite 2019 graduate. He is a huge fan of the New England Patriots, even though Tom Brady has been traded, and he loves the NFL. He is a father of 4 stunning children. The next guest that we have is better otherwise known as the wonderful husband of Rachel DiSalvatore. I'm going to bring live Matt DiSalvatore. Welcome, Matt.
What's up, guys? How are you? Good morning.
Hey, Matt, it wouldn't be appropriate unless we mentioned Rachel. So sorry I had to do that, but she's a huge part of your life and she's a huge part of the rest of our lives. So welcome,
actually,
brother.
When you guys called me up and asked to be on the show, I literally was surprised. I thought you were going to ask me if it was all right if Rachel was on the show.
Well, if we're being serious, I did invite her first, and she said you would have got offended. So she said, please do us a favor and just get Matt on the show, and you can get me at a later time. So the cat's out of the hat now.
Thank you. I appreciate putting me on first. But she's much more interesting than I am. I'm going to be a letdown. So
give yourself some credit. That's why we have you on the show, Matt.
Well, thanks for having me, and congrats on 1 month at this, guys. I've seen all the other episodes. I'm really enjoying it, and I was happy when you guys reached out, and happy to do this.
Great,
beautiful. Well, thanks for making the time, man. It's going to be good. You know, I think our goal today is talking about sales and mentorship. You know, I know that you and Matt had already discussed, a couple topics of interest for you. And those happen to be 2 things we haven't discussed yet on the show, and things that I particularly love talking about. In fact, Matt and I were brainstorming yesterday, and I unfortunately took about an hour of his life where he was just sitting in his car outside of his house waiting to go in. So we won't make it that long. But you know what, Matt? Why don't you go ahead and lead off by sharing a little bit of your start in the sign industry. I know it's a family business, and kind of some of the positions you've held briefly, and then let's jump into some of the topics that you want to cover.
Sure. So my parents own Creative Signs. They've had it for going on 40 years now. It's been in Central Florida the entire time. My dad used to be a hand sign painter. So he's an old letterhead. He used to do all that stuff. Doesn't really do it anymore. But he went to commercial art school up in Boston. And that's where my parents are originally from. Hence, that's why I'm the New England Patriots fan. They were both from Maine. He went back to Maine after going to commercial art school. And that's where he learned how to hand sign paint and started a business up there in Bangor, Maine, very small town. Some people might know it. And he did all the signs for all the businesses in Bangor, Maine, and then he didn't have any more work. So actually, the real story is he used to do a lot of billboards in Maine, and then they passed legislation back in the mid 70s, I want to say, or something like that, where now billboards they don't have them anymore in Maine. So that killed his business. So he decided to move down to Central Florida. He did, started working for a sign company down here, letter and vehicles, and then just decided one day, hey, I want to go off on my own again. And 1981, started Creative Signs. I was born in 83. And I think my mom was working there at the time as well. So like I was going into work then. Like, I mean, obviously I was a baby. They just had me in like a carriage or whatever, but I would just sit right next to my mom's desk. So fast forward, when I was about 15 or so, I would go in and code out 4x8s. This is back before digital printers. We just had a sign maker, which was it would just cut out the vinyl letters, the old Gerber blue machine. Some people might remember that thing, the Sign Maker Plus, I think is what it was. And you would just put the vinyl in there and it would cut it out. But we did a lot of real estate signs because he used to hand paint those and lettering vehicles. So I would go and code out 4x8s and coat posts. And I did that all throughout high school. And then I got into the install side. And then I've got a funny story that maybe we'll have time for a little later on, which was one of my huge transitions of why I didn't want to do installs anymore and then went into sales. So I currently work with both of my parents. My parents, we always say my parents had 5 kids for cheap labor. All 5
Yes.
at one point or another have worked for the business. And currently I work with my 2 brothers. I've got an older brother and a younger brother. And we all just kind of, we all have different strengths and we all have kind of just went into those areas of the business. So that's kind of how I went into sales, was my parents just, Matt's the people person. So, hey, go out there and sell signs. So, yeah.
Matt, I know myself, I work at Spectra. We are also a family business. And I know sometimes it's not easy. I think there's many advantages to working for a family business or being a family member, part of a family business. I'm not going to say a lot of things slide, but there's an understanding, a common understanding between the people working there, I guess, because they share that family dynamic. Going for you, is there a pro, a con, or multiple pros and cons that you find being a family member in a family business?
I don't know. Pros and cons on it. I mean, I know my parents they've always been, pretty along the same lines with everyone as employees or like, okay, so here's a good example that I give. My mom is the most loving, nurturing mom that you've ever met in your life. Home cooked meals. She's excellent. She's always got a word of advice or wisdom. She's just so nurturing and loving outside of work. Inside of work, she's got a whip in her hand and she is just cracking the whip. And like one thing that I think the reason why our family dynamic works so well at work is because of the foundation that my parents have set in compartmentalizing. So my mom and dad are both excellent at, this is work, this is family. And when she crosses the threshold of creative signs, it's like when her car drives onto the lot, she's no longer my mom. She's my boss, and she is absolutely brutal. But we need that. You know, she's the one that's keeping time frames. She's the production manager. She's making sure we are hitting the timelines that we've promised clients for. And I'm really thankful for it. And she and I can have like a knockdown, drag out argument at work at 4:59. And then as soon as we walk outside, I can go over to her house and have dinner. And it's because of that compartmentalizing that they've done over the years that has really set that foundation for us as the kids. And we're just used to it. I mean, maybe some of it could be considered a little dysfunctional, but I really like that side of it, how we can be, I can have work mom and then have my real mom. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it's part of dysfunctional is functional. So sometimes dysfunctional ends up being functional things. And I know, again, coming from a sign family, sometimes our dynamic comes across as being dysfunctional, but at the same time, we're a well-oiled machine. We're very efficient in the way we go about doing things. And I think that's because there's a lot of family core values that surround our business that keep us in check. So I think that's very valid what you said.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, I think that covered a pro and a con. I think all in the same notion. I imagine that even though that your mother is nurturing and kind and ready to invest in her children outside of work, I guess inside of work, right? You don't get to capitalize on any sort of favoritism, which is a con in my opinion, right? Like, come on, I want some special treatment.
Come on, Ma. What do you mean? You didn't bring me lunch today? Come on, Mom.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we covered some pros and cons. And if you had anything else on that, feel free to chime in on it. I think the next thing we wanted to talk about was kind of the mix between mentorship and that connection with sales, right? That's something that's pretty important to you and something that you invest in regularly, right?
Sure. Yeah. So Tabitha Bowen, who was a ISA Elite member in 2017, her husband Jim, ISA Elite in our class 2018, the GOATs. Yep. Tabitha actually couldn't go to her classes leadership thing up in DC. So she actually joined us in DC for the 2018 class. So her and her husband both went to that one where Matt Lavery and I met her. We had met Jim previously, and maybe we had met Tabitha. I don't think we had, though. I don't think we met her in Orlando, maybe briefly or something. But I know we really got to know her up in DC. And my wife came along as well. So Jim, Tabitha, my wife Rachel, and I really we just hit it off. Like, we hung out outside of the leadership thing. We went and visited sites together and just kind of spent a day together and really forged a relationship there. Well, in that relationship, we found out that Tabitha's in sales. She's kind of brand new to sales at the company. Her previous employment was in HR. So she does really well at hiring. She knows all of that stuff. She has a lot of the skills needed for sales, but their business, All Right Signs out of Chicago, what their niche is working more with installations and national sign companies. So they do installation for a lot of national sign companies, and they do a fantastic job at it. I think they pull the second most permits in the city of Chicago. Wow. So shout out to All Right Signs for any national sign companies out there. They do great work. But one thing that they haven't excelled in is selling signs to local businesses and stuff like that. And Tabitha was kind of putting her toe in the water and just kind of learning on her own on doing that. So she and I just kind of, I told her, I said, we can set up something where however often you want to do it, give me a call. I will walk you through some sales stuff. We can kind of go through your pipeline. I can, any deals that you're stuck on, let's go through them. Let's talk about your sales process, how things are going. And actually, I got a phone call scheduled with her tomorrow. We do once a month. It's usually like the last Friday of the month. It's on both of our calendars. Either she'll call me or I'll call her, and we set aside an hour and we just kind of go through her deals. And maybe you guys can have her on sometime and kind of talk through her side of it. But it's been helpful for me doing it in a couple of different ways. For me personally, when she goes through a deal, it's a lot easier for me to break down where things went awry, where I would have done things differently, whereas when I'm doing a deal, when I'm going through my sales process, I can make mistakes because I'm not looking at it from a 50,000 foot view. I'm inside of it, I'm doing it, and I'll make some mistakes. Whereas when she's explaining the whole thing to me, I can easily pick stuff out, and then I see those things in my own sales process, mistakes that I've made as I'm pointing stuff out to her and saying, actually, you should have said this, or on this phone conversation, maybe you should have asked this question or this, and it helps me. Another way it helps me is they have a strength in that their installers, between Jim's dad and their whole crew, has over 100 years of installation experience. I mean, they know their stuff when it comes to installs. Some of my installers are kind of green. So I have my brother, my older brother, Tony, he heads up one of our install crews. Whenever we come across, and on top of that, they know how to bid national sign company jobs. So whenever we're doing something like that and we hit a roadblock, we reach out to Jim. And now my brother has a once a month phone call set up with Jim, and they do the same thing. And that's all come out of this, of us having this relationship through that would have never been there if it wasn't for the ISA Elite program. So I can't give enough credit to that program and say how much that's done for Creative Signs and just my career in general. So any questions like on the dynamic of how things work with Tabitha and I, or like anything like that?
I personally think that's inspiring. It's funny that you bring this up because as Joe was saying before, we actually found ourselves in the exact same position yesterday via the fact that he's an ISA Elite, you're an ISA Elite, I'm an ISA Elite. Joe and I had a phone conversation yesterday that just started off as a work thing, and then it went into a 1 hour session of Joe mentoring me, everything that was in his head that had to do with sales, and some of the position that I felt I was in yesterday. One question, two questions led into Joe opening up a book of knowledge and just feeding me information that I was retaining. And it all had to do with sales. It was all coming from a good place, and it was all genuine. And I honestly feel the exact same thing like you said. I don't know if we would be in that same opportunity if it wasn't for that ISA Elite program that brought us together. And now we have young people coast to coast, states to Canada, that are mentoring each other and not looking at it as a direct competitor. It's information. We're feeding each other. We're all just trying to grow and better ourselves in our career. And we're willing to go outside of the box to teach each other. And I think it's valuable, and I think it's credible to you and an honor to you and your character for going about and doing that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I love it. And I'm glad that you brought that up about people that are not direct competition type of thing, because there's actually a guy here in town. His name's Ken Sode. He's actually the president of the Southern State Sign Association now. After the ISA Elite program, I reached out to Southern State Sign Association and said, hey, I'd like to get more involved because of the whole ISA thing, ISA Elite program. And they told me about Ken. He's down the street from me. I mean, our shops are probably 20 minutes apart. And we are direct competition. You know what I mean? There's jobs that we bid on. I mean, he's much larger than we are, but he has really like just taken me under his wing, and I can call him up for stuff. And there's other guys that are in the Southern State Sign Association as well that there's a couple of us in town that are direct competitors with one another, but we're all of the mindset of like, there's enough business out there for all of us, and we're still willing to pour into each other. And both of these guys have businesses that are larger than ours and been around longer and just have bigger things. So when I run into stuff, I'm able to reach out to them like with a permitting issue or whatever it is, and they're more than willing to share. And that's just something that I love about the sign industry, that even though we are direct competitors, like we're still on the same team, and like we just have this mentality of all ships are going to rise. And I really love that about the sign industry, because when I tell people about my experience at ISA Elite and about Southern State Sign Association and all this stuff, like they don't, in their industries, they don't share that same type of feeling that I do, that I have about the sign industry. And I mean, I plan on being in the sign industry the rest of my life. I mean, I was born into it. And a lot of the guys in the Southern State Sign Association say it's like the mafia. You can't get out of it. But
yeah.
Kind of feels like that.
Once you're in for 3 years, you're stuck. That's what I've been told. But you both Matts kind of brought up a subject that I was looking to tie in to this podcast today. And so a couple comments on both, and then it's going to lead me into my next question for you, Matt. So the positivity that you feel is not reflected all the way across this country. There are plenty of people that have the mindset that, you know, if somebody is competition, they're the enemy, right? And I think there's lots of people that have history that cause these things. And a lot of times it's an island mentality, right? And you mentioned the all ships will rise. So one of the things that is part of the addition to how I grow my ability, experience is the most important thing, in my opinion, when it comes to sales. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to make mistakes. Yep. You've got to be conscious of being able to look at how you handled something and figure out, all right, what am I learning from this moment? But one of the other things is just gleaning information from those that have come before us, and not necessarily salespeople, but just successful business owners, right? So one of the things that is one of the key signs of a great leader is they raise up other leaders. So this ties into the question I had for you, Matt, and it was going to relate to books. So there's a book that I read at least once a year called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And that's one of the laws. Great leaders raise up other leaders. So that's not, it's not something that's natural. It's a testament to you not only being a good individual, but being a great leader. And that's the true test is, you know, if you become an island, eventually something will happen. And if there's not somebody to come pick you up when that island sinks, you're kind of done for. But when you influence and you invest in others, all ships will rise, right? So I think it's a great thing to talk about. So that's one of the books that is really important to me. Is there any particular, doesn't have to be a sales book, right? I think where I glean the most value isn't necessarily sales books. They build character. They teach principles of just operation in life. But is there anything that you've pulled from either recently or even in the distant past that you would attribute some of your experience and knowledge to?
So I don't know if you've heard of the Sandler selling system at all, Sandler training. That is where I pull 99% of my sales process. Everything is through Sandler.
Sandler.
Yeah, like Adam Sandler, but a guy that started, his name is David Sandler. Okay. And I've done that sales training for about 4 years now, maybe going on 5. And it's weekly. It's a class I show up to weekly whenever I can make it. Right now they're doing like Zoom calls, but one of the books, I can't think of the guy's name on there, but the name of the book is The Contrarian Salesman. And it just, the whole Sandler system, I can't get into the whole thing, but it's so much different than a lot of the other selling systems that are out there and just kind of repackaged. It takes a totally different approach to it. And that's what I kind of go through. Some of the stuff I go through with Tabitha is it's got all these rules to it and everything. But coming off of that, something that my wife and I are reading right now. Have you guys heard of the Enneagram?
No.
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so the Enneagram is like, okay, so you know disc profile?
A little bit.
Okay, so disc, D-I-S-K, it's like, it's also used in sales. So it is like personality types, or it's not actually personality types because there's a bunch of other ones that are like that. But disc is more like behavior types, how people behave. And there's 4 different ones, disc. I'm actually, so if when the ISA Expo happens here in Orlando, again in August, I will be doing a lunch and learn or a lounge and learn session on disc profile.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so you guys can come check that out. But the Enneagram, so the book we're reading on Enneagram is there's 9 different types of people. This thing looks into your soul. I don't know how to spell it. You'll just have to look it up. It's the Enneagram. It's a really weird word, but I'm a number 3 on the Enneagram. My wife is a number 7, and it talks about the dynamic of how each one reacts, how you live your life, how you make decisions. It's really, really crazy. Like, I'm not a super emotional guy, but when my wife and I were reading about the number 3, I got emotional just reading, and actually we were listening to it. We do book on tape because we're in the 21st century now, right? So we're listening to it, and I was like, I'm listening to all the other ones, and I'm like, no, I don't know if that one's me. No, I don't know if that one's me. And then it gets to 3, and it starts doing all this describing of it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like this guy is like peering into my soul. It was, so it's really cool, and getting to know more about my wife that way as well. What I like about disc profile is you can meet someone within 30 seconds and find out what they are. Enneagram is way more in depth. You can know someone for years and not know. You could be like, they could be a 1 or they could be a 8. I don't know. So
beautiful.
Sorry,
I don't know a lot about disc profile, so I'm gonna have to check that out myself. And that book sounds pretty interesting. So I'm guessing you meant audiobook, not book on tape. So maybe you were in the 20th century and not the 21st century. I just wanted to point that out.
Touche.
Matt, you had something you were going to chime in with. I cut you off there. I'm sorry.
For anybody out there that was looking to look up what Matt was talking about, the correct spelling is ENNEAGRAM. So I actually pulled it up on my other computer, and this is something I'm going to do some research on later. So that's pretty cool, Matt.
And I can't tell you the name of the book. My wife picked it out, and we're listening to it together. I don't know. Maybe I can send it to you guys, and you can put the link in the description. I've always wanted to say that. Sorry. That was what I wanted to say today. Crossed it off my list.
Don't forget to comment and subscribe below.
So
notification.
So I think, given our guest today, I think this is a perfect opportunity, especially given who we think our target audience is, to offer some encouragement, right? So I'm going to do my best to be brief, and I'm going to share one nugget of wisdom that I found hugely important for the way I've operated in my career. And something that I think lots of people, especially people in sales, tend to be self-critical, right? We might not always take criticism well from others, but we're definitely self-critical. And this kind of ties in to another book that I think has kind of shaped a filter that I kind of put things through. So the first phase of how I would share this is there isn't a right way for everybody, right? I think dynamics, personality, all of these things are huge. And I think oftentimes we can look at the way somebody does something and say, oh, I want to do it that way. So here's the word of encouragement. There's a book called Mastery, pretty daggone big. Here's the cliff notes. The cliff notes are, when you start a career, when you start a project, take the first 10 years and glean every piece of information from any sort of leader in the industry, any sort of program, any sort of book. Absorb all of that and do your very best to apply all of those little nuggets of wisdom. And how the book talks about this is artists, business owners, musicians, people that have affected our world, not particularly in sales, but in any number of genres that we consume, entertainment or products, right? And after that 10 years, you say, screw it, and you trust your instinct. And I think this is the most perfect and beautiful way to be able to filter out the things that don't necessarily make you a better person or don't naturally become a part of your process. And it allows you to be free. And I think that's the summary, is when you invest that time to pull in all that information from all these professionals and put it through your filter and try and apply those things, you can hold on to all those pearls and get rid of the rest. And you can become the best version of a salesperson or any form of profession that you can. And I think that's freedom, right? I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't let themselves ever get out of. I'm still critical of myself, but I trust myself a lot more now than I did 5 years ago, in that I've done my best to absorb as much of that information now. And it's really shifted confidence. It's shifted success, because I don't try and put a situation through John Smith's filter from Super Sales book, whatever, right? I put it through my filter, right? So that's my golden nugget. Invest the time and trust your instincts. So I'm imagining you've probably got one. That was long. I tried to be short.
No, that was good.
Matt, I imagine you probably have a key golden nugget that you probably have in your heart that has been a big part of how you do what you do, and how you invest in others, and how you do your work in general.
Sure. So I'm huge on mentorship. It's been a big part of my life. I have people in my life that are business mentors, personal mentors. The house that I'm living in right now, one of the big reasons my wife and I moved into this house is because my best friend lives right across the golf course from us. And he has 4 kids that are absolutely incredible kids. They're further along. My oldest is 5 years old. And his oldest is maybe early teenager, like something like that. But his kids are absolutely incredible. He's my mentor when it comes to being a father, being a dad. And I have tons of different mentors in my life, and I surround myself with these people. And the advice that I would give to other people is find mentors in different areas of your life that are willing to call you out, that you can listen to, that are better than you. Like the way that I find my mentors is I look at someone that's years ahead of me in something, and I say, that's where I want to be when I'm their age, or at the point in my career, or I want to be where they're at, because they have, the saying, what's that? No.
Can't teach an old dog new tricks.
No. I'm drawing a blank here. I'll just move from it because I can't think of it. but they've already run a race that I'm just starting, right? And they've already gone down the wrong paths in areas, so they can teach me lessons that I don't need to learn. Like, I can learn from their mistakes. I don't need to learn from my own mistakes. But you have to surround yourself with people and be okay with them calling you out on stuff. Like this guy, my wife has his wife's phone number, and if I'm not doing stuff correctly, like, I've given my wife full permission to call his wife so that he can talk to me and call me out on stuff. Wow. And like, I do the same thing. Like, I really like accountability, like, so much so I need it in my life, and I give people permission to call me out on stuff. Like, I used to have really thin skin. Like, as a salesperson, I think a lot of times we do. Like you pointed out to it earlier, Joe, we're really critical on ourselves. But if someone else points something out in us, we like we bow up or whatever, and we get pushed back. By doing this, by allowing people to hold me accountable in situations and telling them, I want you to call me out on stuff, it has made me have thicker skin. And I don't do it with everyone, right? Like, I don't do it at someone that I meet at a grocery store. I do it with someone who has my best interest in mind. They've already proven that they care about me enough that when they call me out for something, I know that they're not doing it just to poke fun at it. They're literally doing it to grow me as a person. So it's tough to find those people that they are where you want to be, and B, they care about you enough to where that they will take the time, effort, and energy to do that stuff. Yeah. But I have found those people in my life, and they are absolutely incredible. And they've made me a different person today than I've been in the past.
I love that. Joe, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking I did have something I wanted to screen share, and we're getting close to time here. So instead of talking about this, we're going to make this a public service announcement. So let me see if I can get this to pop up for you guys real quick.
Our first public service announcement on Rise and Signs, eh? Oh.
All right.
Yes.
So this is a version of a comic that my buddy Adam showed me a long time ago, and I feel like this is a lot of times what we run into in our world is people are too busy to talk to the sales guy, right? So here's the sales guy with the round wheels, and here's the customer who's too busy towing their wagon with square wheels to talk to the sales guy, right? So here's the public service announcement. You know, we know that there's sales guys that are earning their stripes, right? And they might not be bringing a lot of value, but at some point, when any of these people apply themselves, they're going to bring value. So if you got a sales guy visiting you, calling on you, remember to give them a shot, at least every now and then, and actually listen to what they say, because this is reality. A lot of times, guys like me and these other two Matts that we have on here, we got the round wheel. And you're pushing stuff around with square wheels, and we can make your life easier. So that's our public service announcement.
Well done, Joe.
Amen to that.
All right, now I just got to figure out. Oh, I think Brian turned it off for us. Awesome. So I think that's all I had. We're getting there. Was there any closing remarks that you had, Matt, or anything you wanted to touch on real quick?
No, I'm excited for you guys in this whole podcast thing. I'm going to share this on all my social media stuff. Obviously, I'll put it out there on LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm going to get the Southern State Sign Association to share it. So, yeah, I mean, anything I can do to help, you guys reach out to me, and any resources I have. I love what you guys are doing during this time, and this is awesome. So thanks for having me.
Matt, we appreciate it, and we appreciate you taking the time off to do this with us. Say hi to everybody at home. Say hi to the family. Say hi to the kids. Many blessings. Hang tight during these COVID times, like we tell everybody. And again, thank you. You're a beauty.
Yeah, we love the support, Matt, and thanks again. Be real safe, all right?
Yeah, Rachel and the kids say hi, guys, as well. And we'll see you all in Orlando here at ISA. In August. We're really looking forward to it.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Bye, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Take care, guys. Thanks.
Joe, there's one thing I want to touch upon, and this is something I thought about yesterday. This is something, again, I'm reassured of it because, again, I had that conversation with you yesterday for an hour and change, and now Matt came on. The one thing that we get a lot of in the industry is people are always saying our industry lacks education. Our industry lacks educational tools to be teaching the next generation or to be teaching the people that are in the generation. I know myself, I don't come from schooling in science. I didn't go to university for anything to do with science. I fell into a career, and it's one of those things that I've just built every year that goes on. And conversations like this, guests like Matt speaking to you, it's valuable information. And for all the people that are out there, for all of the people that are tuning in, don't underestimate the ability to ask somebody else for advice and for mentorship. The ISA SAC is full of people that want to talk, that want to open up their doors, that have no problem sharing valuable information to you to make you better at what you do. But it's on us to reach out to those people to ask for help. But the education is there, and it's little things like this that, you could become a better salesman by talking to a guy like you or by talking to a guy like Matt. We just have to do the due diligence to reach out to these people and learn more. So it's a testament to what our industry is doing and the direction that we are taking it. So once again, another fabulous guest.
Yeah, I agree, man. I appreciate all the kind words. The only thing I would add to that is I love investing in other people. I think it's fulfilling to me personally to be able to help guide others and see them have success. It's something I'm pretty excited about. So let's close it up, everyone. Yep. Thanks for joining us on Rising Signs again. As always, episode 4. We appreciate the support. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel below. Of course, if you enjoyed the podcast, share it. And as always, for Rising Signs, I'm Joe. This guy.
And I'm Matthew. I'm Matthew.
This is Rising Signs. Thank you, guys.
Guys, have a great Friday morning.
Woo-hoo!
Woo!